Hello everyone, I'm Yoo-ji Hye and welcome to the newsroom where we bring the behind-the-scenes look on how we deliver the news to you. Today you're joining me here at a very special room. This is what we call a gallery, the control room, the nerve center to be exact. And maybe this is probably the place that you don't often get to see on television news. But let's start with here. Let me just give you a quick tour. Now, this is a panel that controls the level of audio of the presenters and the guests as well as the background music. And if you follow me here, it's a very special computer. Let me just click on one of these. Right, this is a script that the reporters have written, and that's a teleprompter, so the presenters like myself will be reading it downstairs. This is a very special seat. It's for our director. Producers will be directing and giving out, calling out the final shots, making decisions on what angles or camera angles or the video footage they want to see on air. But moving right here with me, right, do you see this fancy gadget? Now this is using these little switch buttons. Let me just press on some of them. Right, there we go. Right. What producers wants to be on air, the switchers will be working and will decide on what's going to be on air. That's where you'll be seeing it. And moving on right here, this is a panel for controlling the camera shots as well as the color, the size, and so on. So what I would like to say is that Arirang News is all about team effort of great talents, and there are huge work going on behind the scenes. It's not simply about presenters being on camera, but the news never stops, and the team at Arirang News never stops either. And with that being said, let's go over to our Hwang Sung-ki for the recap of some of the headlines this week.
Hi Ji-hye. So last week was a busy week for all of us because of the Nuclear Security Summit. And we thought we'd take it easy this week, but it was another busy week for us reporters. So let's start off with the April 11th general elections. With less than a week left before the Korean public votes for a new National Assembly, Arirang News closely followed the election campaigns of the candidates. Staying with the elections, Korean residents living overseas got a chance to cast votes for the first time, but their turnout was disappointingly low. North Korea is adamant in its plan to launch what it calls a weather satellite next week, despite mounting international condemnations and threats of punitive action. A group of North Korean defectors who had been holed up for years in the South Korean consulate in Beijing finally arrived in Korea, which experts view as China's softening attitude on North Korean refugees. A deadly shooting took place in a small Christian college in California. A 43-year-old Korean-American gunman opened fire in the school, killing 7 people and injuring 3 others. Monthly sales of Korean automaker Kia Motors topped the 50,000-unit mark in the United States for the first time in the month of March. Kia entered the U.S. market almost 2 decades ago in 1994. Fears of recession forced the European Central Bank to freeze interest rates for another month at 1%. The bank says it will remain cautious in deciding whether to exit from financial aid to the region's banks. However, back in Korea, the government's push to tame inflation may be working. Korea's consumer price index eased for a 3rd straight month to a 20-month low in March. So looking at the headlines, it looks like us reporters did a lot of work this week, but we still have to gear up for next week's general elections. But for now, I wanted to join you in the newsroom, so I'll be seeing you soon.
Hey guys, before we begin, let's give ourselves a huge round of applause for making it through last week's Nuclear Security Summit. Hard work did pay off.
Yay.
Right, good job. So moving on to this week, the first week of April, I guess the story we've been following for quite some time now is North Korea's rocket launch. And Hanu, being a defense ministry correspondent you've been tracking the story. What can you tell us?
Well, I just wanted to give the viewers background information on what exactly are we dealing with, because we're talking about rockets, long-range missiles. Sorry I'm late. You're here. We're just talking about the North Korean missile test.
Right, that kept you busy.
Yeah, and it's been the talk of the town, especially at the Defense Ministry, because not so much about whether they're going to launch the rocket or not, it's more about what's going to happen after the launch. And what we're most worried about is a possible North Korean provocation, which we never know if they're going to, go ahead with any type of provocation. It's really difficult to predict what Pyongyang is going to do next.
Korea is saying it is a satellite, whereas in the rest of the world think it's a long-range missile. So what's going on here exactly?
Well, Jia, what we're basically dealing with is a rocket, and if you attach a rocket with a warhead and a tracking device, it becomes a long-range missile, and if you attach a satellite, it becomes a satellite launch vehicle. The UN Resolution 1874, which was adopted in 2009, prohibits North Korea from conducting any launches using ballistic missile technology. So, in other words, this launch, be it a satellite launch as Pyongyang states or a disguised long-range missile test, is a clear violation of the Resolution 1874.
The latest report I heard was there's a huge possibility that they might go ahead with the third nuclear test.
Which is very likely, because that's what they did in 2009. Because after they launched their missile, the UN resolution strongly condemned North Korea's actions, and what they did immediately was to go ahead with a nuclear program development. So if you combine the technology of a long-range missile and the nuclear technology, it just spells trouble. That's going to be another nuclear weapon state right there.
So what are the other correspondents responding to this? What are they saying? Are they
well,
saying
we're postponing our lunches after the North Korean missile because we're actually, just really keeping a close watch on what's going to happen, keeping track of the stories, and
So you're the correspondent for the Ministry of National Defense. So when things like this happen, what are the exact steps that you take to getting a story?
Well, first of all, the best way to get information is go straight to the source, which is the ministry spokesperson's office. We see reports, news reports coming up, but we always double check and go straight to the officials and just confirm that, is this correct? Is this accurate? And sometimes they'll tell you, well, actually, this is not correct, And so it's always important to go straight to the source. And I'm pretty sure you'll sympathize with me.
Yeah, as long as you can actually relate to that. And a lot of the reporters like us who've been into the ministry, so we have to go through that sort of a trouble or process to get those information that we want for the story. What can you tell us, Sanghi? How is it in the ministry? Yeah.
It's rather slow compared to Hanul, I guess. Last week I covered Samsung Electronics. It wasn't something from the Ministry of Strategy and Finance, but I found out that Samsung is really growing up to be a global brand, like global company, instead of just something that's solely in Korea. Despite slowing overseas demand stemming from the onset of economic slowdowns in major advanced nations last year, Samsung Electronics enjoyed quite a bit of success. The world's second-largest handset maker leads the world's smartphone market, securing the #1 spots in the Chinese, French, and Spanish markets. And Samsung is not only doing well in the smartphone industry, it's also making strides in the semiconductor sector. Samsung recently announced plans to spend $7 billion to build a semiconductor factory in China to meet growing demand for the semiconductors known as NAND flash. That, coupled with a strong smartphone division, is expected to lead the growth of the electronics giant, making Samsung a safe bet for investors for the time being. So mainly, when you think about Samsung, it's smartphones, right? But what I found out while I was actually building up my story was that Samsung was excelling in all areas, mainly smartphones as well as memory chips. And this is really interesting because most other memory chip makers are struggling right now, and Samsung is probably the only company that's doing well, so that's something to keep an eye on, I think.
Yeah, and also I heard from a French friend, my French friend, she said that although Apple might rock in smartphones for the iPhones and stuff, I heard that Europeans are fond of Samsung's the laptops, like the small ones. But netbook, I think Samsung rocks. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to some grim news that shocked not only the residents in California, but the rest of the Korean community there as well. Another deadly shooting spree.
I think it's really shocking to hear that it was another Korean man, and I don't know, it's really going to affect Koreans living overseas, I think.
Yeah, it was back in 2007.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
personally,
Right.
I graduated from the University of Virginia in 2007, and this really reminded me of the Virginia Tech shooting incident.
So you were
back
there?
in 2007. Yeah,
I
so
didn't
when
know
this
that.
happened, the entire community was shocked, and Virginia Tech is a school just 2 hours away from where I went to, and just the response from the Korean community, it was just really, it was a very difficult time, especially for the young Korean male students who were attending Virginia Tech at the time, and the image of Koreans living in America, the Korean community is going to suffer from this incident again. It took a long time just to recuperate from the 2007 incident, just to build up.
But yeah, it's good to see you again, because I haven't seen you quite in a bit, because you've been doing early morning shifts. How have you been keeping yourself busy?
Well, like a few days ago, I wrote a package on Syria. Korea's foreign ministry said on Monday that it will take part in supporting Syrian opposition groups, the first action ever to be taken by the Korean government on the Syrian uprising. This came after a Friends of the Syrian People summit in Turkey on Sunday, where some 70 Western and Arab foreign ministers gathered. The foreign ministry added that its decision is reasonable and that the public sentiment in Syria is against the current Syrian regime. The South Korean government is going to support the Syrian opposition groups, the rebels. And the money itself is not that huge, because they're going to support.
How much is it?
$1 million US. I mean, that's not a lot. So, but I think
it's a
it's
gesture, don't you?
Yeah, but I think it's meaningful in that they're that the Korean government actually is doing something, showing that they're supporting the opposition groups. So, the Syrian opposition groups. So I think it was quite interesting. Yeah, and like other, like not only Korea, but the United States, Germany, Kuwait, and all the other countries are also doing this. So I think it's a
They're
good
called
way.
like the Friends of Syria or something, right?
Yeah, they had this conference.
It's relief to know that we are hearing recent reports that the troops of the Syrian government is actually pulling out in the major cities, and that they have agreed to a UN-backed peace plan. But still, judging from what they have been doing so far from the history, I guess it's a bit too early to tell if there's going to be peace in Syria for real. Let's keep an eye on that story in the coming days. And yeah, this week and next, we'll be keeping ourselves extremely busy with the April general elections. Keep up the good work, and yeah, good luck, guys, for this week and next. I'll see you guys back here next week, hopefully. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
The new trend in the way candidates are, leading their campaigns can be summarized in the 3 S's. 1, silent, and then smart and special. So I will first visit the ruling Saenuri Party's headquarters in Yeouido and hear what their PR strategy is. And then I'm gonna go visit the main opposition Democratic United Party's office.
그분 아니더라도 좀 이렇게 그러니까 홍보 전략 어떻게 되시는지 그거 한 말씀.
다른 분은 하실 분 없어요.
저희 그럼 민주통합당밖에 할 수가 없어요.
네, 우선
그러면,
알겠습니다. 제가
예.
봤을 때는 일단 다시 잡으시는 게 좋으실 것 같아요.
그럼 혹시 그 연락은 언제쯤 주실 수 있으세요? 일단 민주당 가야겠네요.
It doesn't happen
A lot. I guess, it's the ruling party and, it's the election season. They are running to and fro, they are busy with their campaigning. So I think because it's the high profile political figures, this just happened.
I'm here to talk to the main PR person, Mr. Moon Yong-sik, who drafted a strategy, a campaign strategy that uses SNS, the social networking services. So he's the person to talk to from this party for my feature story. 요즘에는 이색적인 동영상, SNS를 100분 활용하는 그런 선거운동으로 바뀌고 있습니다.
지금 젊은 세대들, 소위 2040층에 맞는 그 소셜 미디어를 통해서
He talked about his party's internet broadcast that talks about the pledges of each party, each candidate, and it connects live to the people campaigning on site, across the nation.
페이스북 마찬가지고 홈페이지도 마찬가지고 여기 국회의원 지역별로 후보자 소개하고 4시부터 6시까지 소셜 총선학교 땡땡땡이라고 저희가 이제 생방송을 프로그램 짜서 수업 형태로 짜서 운영을 하고 있고.
안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. I just talked to a group of students known as WePoll. These are a group of young people very enthusiastic about this upcoming general elections. And I asked them, so these are the new trends in the way that we inform ourselves and candidates do their campaigns. Do you agree? And surprisingly, yes, the answer was yes.
SNS 사용이 굉장히 익숙하고 자신이 알고 있는 정보를 다른 사람에게 알려주고 싶은 욕구가 큰 것 같아요. 투표율을 높이는 게 가장 큰 목적이거든요.
It was very fun. I learned a lot just by meeting these people. So yeah, it was a good day. It was all worthwhile.
홍보팀으로 먼저. 감사합니다. 젊은이들한테 더 쉽게 다가가려고 하신 건지.
이 시대의 흐름이 인터넷을 통한 소통이 가장 큰 수단이지 않습니까?
Overall, they really want to see a big change happen, both the candidates and voters. So I just wish that their wish for change would come true. And yes, everyone, please take part in voting.
Okay, we have less than a week to go until the April general elections. How is everyone holding up?
Well, we just finished off with our NSS Nuclear Security Summit, and yeah, we have another assignment coming up. Woohoo! We're very excited about that, right, Tan?
Totally excited.
Especially you.
But also, pretty worried about how I'm going to climb another huge mountain right after this whole nuclear security summit. But just a quick recap of what this general elections is all about for our viewers who may not be familiar with Korean election system. It's to elect 300 members of the National Assembly who will, of course, have significant influence in Korea's domestic and foreign policies over the next 4 years.
That's a new measure, right? 300. It used to be 299, but starting this
Plus
year,
one.
yeah.
Thanks for mentioning that. And they can be divided into two groups. One will be 200 representatives, candidates who will be representing 246 exactly, am I right?
Yes,
local
you are.
constituencies, and the other group are called proportional representatives.
I think it's called a winner-takes-all kind of
Right.
system where they are voted. We get 2 ballot tickets, and we vote for a single member, like you said, Han, and then we also vote for a party that we would like to go for. And then the proportional representations will come from those parties that we elected for. And I think it's very similar to the Japanese system a little bit and maybe the Russian system. I think it's a little bit different from the U.S. system, yeah?
And I think the system itself is also pretty simple. It's largely a two-way system, two-way race between the ruling Henry Party and the main opposition Democratic United Party.
The liberal bloc.
Largely adopting bipartisan system.
Right. So what are the main pledges? I know you've been...
Well, it's welfare. We can't leave that out. Both of them, the ruling party and the opposition party, are saying they're going to pump billions of dollars into welfare. One is calling it specific welfare, the other is calling it universal. But regardless, their campaign pledges are very much focused on improving welfare services.
Yeah, I think it's quite daunting in the sense that a lot of the focus is on welfare policies, and what's daunting is the fact that it just sounds unfeasible. Don't you think that it's a far-fetched idea in a sense? It's such a heap of money, like you just said, and I know they are, running a tight race and stuff like that. But something should be realistic. They should come up with a specific measure how they're going to make this happen. Right. In the latest survey I looked at, it shows that it's a neck-and-neck competition. I mean, it's really hard to predict at this moment where the voters will lean towards. I guess it's because we have more than 40% of swing voters, which means people are not affiliated to any particular party, so they're still trying to make up their minds.
Yeah, many independents after after that proportional representation nominees, we went through a tumultuous time there in both of the parties, and after that, a lot of them are running as independents. I know that in my constituency there are 2 independents. Yeah.
This is one of the tightest races I've ever seen in history. I think in the history of Korea.
Actually, okay, let's move on to next week. What's in store for us? Obviously, we'll be following up on the campaign trails in major constituencies and candidates as well. And on the very day, obviously, we're going to be tallying votes, and we'll be calling in all the experts.
There's one person who pops into my head right now.
Who is that?
Our reporter, Lee Ji-yoon, our National Assembly correspondent, is going to have
some stuff to do.
Pretty much work to do next week.
Should be covering the camps, I think. A couple of our voters.
I'm sure, yes. I'm sure. One at the ruling party, the other at the main opposition.
Okay, well, lots coming up, and let's sail through this as we did for the Nuclear Security Summit. Let's hope so. Good luck, everyone.
Let's gear up for the next.
No, I was early morning shift Monday, so.
On let's go over to our Hwang Sung-hee, who's been waiting for us to 죄송합니다.
Open fire in